Prime Network presents the Fountain Powerboat Owens Corning APBA Offshore Series. This special, the 1996 APBA Year in Review, is brought to you by Fountain Powerboats. When we race, you win. And by Cobra Marine, engines built for reliability. Hello, everyone. Art Ekman along with Mark Spencer, the former editor of Powerboat Magazine. Connie Willis will be joining us later in the show. 1996, we had a little bit of everything, Mark. We had thrills and spills. We had great championship drives. We had different water conditions in almost every venue we went to and had some great action.
That's right, Art. This all started way back in May in Galveston, Texas, went all the way across the country, ended up in Ventura, California. And along the way, we made stops at some historical places like the Chesapeake Bay up in Maryland. And the one thing I'll always remember is those huge spectator fleets. Everywhere we went, the banks were lined with people, the waterways were lined with people. Offshore racing really took off in 1996.
As we begin our highlights for the year, let's take a look first of all at the A class, where the smaller boats got most of the pounding, I'm afraid. Sublexator ran away with the championship. Great championship drive. And then in the B class, it went right down to the final race. The Muscle and Joanna. There's nothing better than a drive right to the end.
That's right, the A class. It's where you learn about offshore racing, and one of the things we found out early in the season is that you've got to hit all your checkpoints. A lot of wrong turns early in the seasons change the points race, but you got to remember those two boats early in the year in the A class. They changed everything, the Rain-X Express and Baby.
Two very innovative and controversial designs. AX41 Baby, long and slender with a pontoon-looking ring surrounding the hull. And then you've got the Bat Boat, Rain-X Express AX50. Only a 28-footer, but it flies.
Two revolutionary designs are the A50, the Rain-X Express, a V-bottom hull that uses wings both for aerodynamic lift for added speed and stability in the rough water. And then there's the Baby. That inflatable collar on the sides allows the driver to throttle the boat a lot harder in big water. The collar will catch it every time it starts to walk on its side and right the boat.
Two wins in Galveston and Sarasota. We asked Mark Nemshoff about the handling. How does it handle differently from the other boats?
It's much twitchier. It's real finicky, real sensitive to everything that comes along. You really have to let the boat go, run it loose, run it fast. Fabio Buzzi builds loose boats, and he likes to run them that way, and he taught me how to do that.
We spoke with Ed Szilagyi about the handling of his boat.
There is no comparison. It's a totally different boat. The feeling is different. The ride is different. It's so smooth. It glides when it comes off a wave. It's just a totally different feeling. You don't get the jarring. You don't get the nose high effect that you get. The boat has a tendency to fly straight. If you come off a wave a little sideways, as the wing comes near the water, the ground effect of the wing itself rights the boat.
Because of their radical design, Art, both of these boats were about 10 to 15 miles an hour faster than anything else in the A class, which caused the APBA officials to create an AX division.
At Fort Myers, Baby was so fast, it cut behind the spectator fleet and everybody followed him, except A10 Flashpoint, known as the boat that always took the correct course. In Fort Myers, they were the only ones not to cut behind that fleet. Unfortunately, they broke down on the second lap, and in Sarasota, they were the first boat to realize that 9 boats missed a buoy, and they placed in second. With Baby and Rain-X Express going to their own division, it opened the door for Sublexator, a 26-foot Corsa. They won at Fort Myers after the decision was made. They won at Chesapeake. They won at Palm Beach. And they came away with the A-class crown, winning by 393 points. Taking second place in the division was Performance Marine with Pat Sullivan and Mike Cosell taking over for Mark Sullivan, who broke his hand earlier. A second at Chesapeake and a third in Palm Beach. Ale House was next on the list in the points. Connie Waddick and Bob Christie having a tough time of it. They ran all but the last race on the season, but their best performance, a third place on the Chesapeake.
48 class boats, and they logged some serious airtime. 1996 in the B class. 6 races, 6 different winners.
The curtain went up in Galveston. That race was won by Joanna by 20 seconds, a 38-foot fountain. Then came Fort Myers. It was the Muscle with Diamond Dave Branch, Fast Eddie McCabe, and the Hammer Steve Hoffman.
Sounds like a pro wrestling tag team match. They finished first place in their first race, and then it just kept getting better for them all season long.
It was on to Sarasota, and it was their first race of the season. Everglades Executioner, Eric Bush, and Trace Martin.
A 35-foot fountain dominating performance in Sarasota.
Then on the Chesapeake, it was Buckshot winning with Mark Springer, Bill Fester, and Larry Worland. Their first race of the season as well. At Palm Beach, it was the Banker.
Jamie Coates and Art Lilly averaged 95 miles an hour on the first lap and beat all the Seaboats en route to their victory in the B class.
A decisive win at Ventura by a Western Boat Magic Potion, averaging 73.72 miles an hour, better than the C and stock classes.
But the real headlining story in Ventura was the battle for the national championship between Joanna and the Muscle.
The Muscle barely winning the championship. 12.25 points separated the two.
First race of the Bucks team vowed to make offshore racing history by becoming the first boat to ever win 4 consecutive national championships.
The Sealings with a terrific job. They were chased all season long by this boat. Zero Gravity, Roger Rex, and Scott Mander taking second place in the standings. They lost one race by only 16 seconds to Harris Megabucks.
An interesting mix in the C-class, Art. You've got V-bottoms running with catamarans, and the catamarans were both inboard and outboard powered.
It was an outboard catamaran, the most reliable at Fort Myers, winning the race, Risk Taker, with the rookie driver Diane Young. At the throttle, Andrew Engel. They were never challenged in the race. Their last lap, their fastest, 70.89 miles an hour.
But after Fort Myers, it was all Team Sealing. They won in Sarasota, chased down Zero Gravity at Chesapeake and won there. And they also won in the rough waters of Palm Beach.
This is a terrific look at better than 80 miles an hour in the Chesapeake. In Ventura, it was Secret Agent the winner. They averaged a better speed than the stock class, 73.60 miles an hour. Paul Whittier and Dave Bagg, they won by a decisive 2 minutes 32 seconds.
History in the making, Art. Harrah's Megabucks, 4 consecutive national championships, and they'll go out on a winning note.
We've done this for 10 years. It's a long run. We've had 4 of the most successful years that anybody's ever had in the sport. We're going to take a rest for a year and just sit back and do something else next year.
Perhaps the most competitive division in the APBA ranks stock class. A battle all season long between Cutting Edge and Team Stalker.
Only Team Bermuda right there in the picture to keep them honest as we take a look at Outcast. A good season, a second place in Fort Myers, and 2 fifth-place finishes to round out the season. Campesano Marine won at Fort Myers, their first APBA race of the season, averaging better than 75 miles an hour. They won by 3 seconds. Team Stalker started the season with 2 third-place finishes, then a second at Sarasota. But when they won on the Chesapeake, that shot them into the title picture. S9, Cutting Edge with Alan Butler and Gary Ballou. They won every other race on the season. Their lowest finish was a 5th at Fort Myers. They took a 2nd at Kent Barrows. Team Stalker battled them all the way.
A high finish rate in the stock class, whether it was in the smooth waters of Fort Myers or the rough stuff in Sarasota, average speeds close to 80 miles an hour.
The new color scheme in Ventura for Cutting Edge, and a 5-second win to win the national championship. Moving on to the D division, Pepsi Taco Bell was the class of that division, Mark.
That's right, Art. Joey Padovano and Larry Goldman, 1996, will long be a season that they remember. Actually, in the C division and in the D division, we had a mixture of catamarans and V-bottoms mixing it up. And in the D division, the catamaran won out. 2 years in a row, D1 has been on the side of the Ocean Spray. Bruce Penhall and Dennis Sigalos, the most dominating boat in the class until this year.
That's right, Mark. They had all kinds of problems. Sarasota, a day to forget. They scattered an engine at Kent Narrows. They didn't get it together till Ventura, where they lost by 10 seconds to Running Wild.
And while Ocean Spray had nothing but problems, Pepsi Taco Bell was the picture of consistency, winning in Galveston, winning in Sarasota, and winning on the Chesapeake.
They amassed enough points not to have to race the final race in Ventura and still win the championship. Snapper Phantom, a fine win at Fort Myers, their first APBA race of the year. And Velocity took the other race in Palm Beach. A race of attrition, they ran a good steady run on a non-sponsored budget.
The anticipated battle between the West and the East never materialized. FC Taco Bell cruised to the national championship.
One disappointment in the D division this year was Ocean Spray, a former champion, and they had the thrill of their life one race.
That's right. Dennis Sigalos and Bruce Penhall will never, ever forget Sarasota 1996, a tragic accident. You know, 10 years ago in offshore racing, there was a real move to develop the safety aspects of the sport. We developed the enclosed cockpits, the drivers being strapped in. And 10 years later, as we see the thrills and spills of 1996, I'm glad to report there were no serious injuries.
A couple of those spills happened in the pro outboards. P4 Restore at Fort Myers with Roy Young and Charlie Haynes.
It's one of the most ominous scenes in racing, an offshore boat turned upside down. Because the courses are so spread out, the problem is rescue. Jim Poplin and the Stars paramedics work overhead, but it's usually a fellow competitor that gets there first. Time is of the essence.
In this case, Mark, it was zero gravity with Roger Rex, who got on the scene first of all and diving into the water to make sure those helmets pop up. It's not always easy, though, with canopies.
That's right. The driver and the throttleman are both strapped in. So not only do you have to deal with a boat that's gone upside down at 80, 85 miles per hour, but you also have to extract yourself from the boat, all the while remembering that their occupants are trapped underwater.
Some of the boats do have oxygen available, though. In this case, both red helmets on top of the water, no serious injuries. Also add engine problems to Restore's year. They were not in contention for a title, but Harmsco Hurricane was here at the Chesapeake. They were battling it out, leading at the time when they hooked in the turn. The problem here, the accident occurred in very shallow water. The crews had to push out the canopies, crawl between the boat and the mud on the bottom.
In offshore powerboat racing, you don't usually think of the ocean as being shallow, but on the Chesapeake, that was the case. The Harmsco Hurricane got a little bit sideways in an erratic sea pattern. The back end became the front end, and upside down she went.
Medical crews on the scene very rapidly in this particular turn.
Steve Page and Steve Skorupski in the Harmsco Hurricane battling for a national championship. This really doused their season. In Ventura, the problems continued. In the A class, the A5, no limits. Raul Brock and Steve Simon battling for the lead. Got in nose first. The boat disintegrated. Fortunately, neither occupant was really hurt. And keep in mind, Art, this boat does not have enclosed canopies, so they not only have to deal with all the splinters that you see at 75 miles per hour, but you also have to deal with a wall of Pacific Ocean seawater smacking you in the face.
And when you're battling for the lead with Sublexator, you know you're really tooling on that water.
Art, this accident occurred in one of the turns and actually took the safety crews almost a half an hour to pick up all the pieces of the no limits. And as each one of the boats rounds the course, you see the scene of an accident. It leaves an indelible mark in your mind. The psychology of an accident can sometimes cause the other boats on the race course to start slowing down. You always remember the throttle works two ways.
Perhaps the most bone-chilling accident of the season happened in Sarasota. Ocean Spray trying to catch up to Taco Bell in points, took a chancy move, and it certainly backfired.
Art, in instant replay, you see Dennis Sigalos and Bruce Penhall tried to cut behind the Pepsi Taco Bell, couldn't quite get it done. The boat hooked, they slammed into a spectator boat at almost full throttle. Thank goodness the boat got airborne, no serious injuries.
Both boats damage in the neighborhood of $75,000, and it took 7 crew members working 10-hour days to repair the port side of Ocean Spray. The Fountain Powerboat Owens Corning APBA Offshore Year in Review continues in a moment. Game of the season, it came right all
always tough in the pro outboard division. These boats run average speeds close to 100 miles an hour, and one of the reasons it's so competitive is these boats have a very high finishing rate. They all run basically the same style of engine in their Mercury outboards.
In 1994, Patriot won the Pro Outboard National Championship. Harmsco Hurricane won it in 1995 and vowed to do the same in 1996.
They started off a second in Galveston, but won Fort Myers, an 11-second lead over this boat, the Patriot, with Roger Taylor and Bob Hamlin. The 35-foot Motion won the opening race of the season in Galveston, passing Restore to take the lead. They also won Sarasota and then Ventura.
And while Patriot and Harmsco Hurricane battled it out for the national championship, P69 notorious Giovanni Vivas and William Ford kept them honest.
In the 4 races they ran, they won the last 2. One at Chesapeake when Harmsco flipped and Restore's engines gave way. Palm Beach was a clean victory.
That's right, Art. Remember the scene on the docks before the start of the race. Temperatures close to 100 degrees, and Giovanni Vivas and William Ford were icing down their fuel. It really paid dividends for them. They won at an average speed of 81.36 miles an hour.
And nothing but bad luck, as we mentioned prior, for Restore. The former world champion Charlie Hames, along with Roy Young, they lost an engine at Galveston. They flipped, of course, at Fort Myers. They were leading and lost an engine at Sarasota.
Fit America, they started the season on the fast track, a quick learning curve. They were 4th in Fort Myers, 3rd in Sarasota, 2nd on the Chesapeake, and then the bottom fell out.
The Pro Outboards, Mark, gave us so much exciting action, not only out in front, but also those who were battling for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th.
Deck-to-deck offshore powerboat racing at its best, Art. It's all done at speeds close to 90 miles an hour. You can throw a blanket around the Pro Outboards this year.
Here's a good example. 2 boats that weren't in contention. High Risk and Restore dueling it out. But it takes consistency for championships.
Our whole thing was to be consistent for all the races, and I think we've done that this year. There's been a lot of competition. It's going back and forth every week, or every race is back and forth, and we're real proud about this year.
Appropriately, the Pro Outboard National Championship came down to the final race of the season in Ventura. Both Patriot and Harmsco Hurricane made the trek to the West Coast.
The defending champions in the wake of Patriot. Harmsco Hurricane gave it a good go, but they placed 4th in that final race. Patriot victorious, re-grabbing the championship that they won back in 1994. Racing scenarios through the 1990s. My favorites, guys, is the banker. Because here you had Forrest Barber. His wife was having a baby. He had to leave early. Jamie Coates had to move over and drive for the very first time. And Art Lilly throttled, and they won the race. It was an amazing situation. Mark, what was your favorite?
2 things really stick out in my mind. The first, the performance of Zero Defect. Most people remember the undefeated season, but what I'll remember, Art, is the technological advancements they made on that boat. The multi-speed transmission, the dry-sump stern drives really changed the performance of offshore racing. And also, the return of offshore racing, big league offshore racing, to the West Coast. The last race of the season was truly a milestone achievement.
We've all enjoyed Connie Willis's features throughout the year. I think I know the most exciting one you had. I'm not sure it was your best, but it was your most exciting. You had a lot of great times.
Yes, we did. You're probably right about the best one. But yeah, we went to a Chesapeake Bay, got to eat some crab. You guys threw in the lung thing, too, that I ate. Got to play golf at the PGA Resort in Palm Beach. Talked about the cost of racing, the safety of racing, but you know, I think the best definitely is driving the US-1 open class boat, last year's national championship, going 90 to 100 mile per hour. That was the best.
Jack Harmody asked if I would like to take the US-1 boat for a drive. And here I am with Art Lilly, veteran throttleman in US-1.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is, after we get out of the channel here, if there's nothing coming, I'll go ahead and get it on top of the water, and we'll cruise out of here. All right, I got both motors running. Let's get it on top of the water.
Do I need to go to the left?
Yeah. We go right between that red and the green mark.
Okay.
pressure looks good. Fuel pressure looks good. Water temperature's okay. We're cruising at 50 miles an hour.
50 right now?
Yeah.
Wow. This isn't bad at all.
We'll double that speed.
Uh-oh.
We'll take it up to 100 out here. You're only doing 90.
Oh my gosh!
Good scream, good scream.
Yeah, well, it was fun.
What was your worst moment?
My worst has to be the same one, actually. Yes, because as we got out to about 90 to 100 miles per hour, it broke. The US one broke. And of course, you guys keep blaming me on that one, but on the way back, because it doesn't have power steering when that occurs, I was driving back, trying to get back to the docks with my hand and my feet, hoping not to hit the jetty. With how many millions of dollars does that boat cost?
Oh, boy.
It was all on me. That was my worst.
Well, the drivers and crews in 1996 had their bests and worsts.
First race of the year was Galveston, and we didn't test the boat or anything. We just put the new motors in the boat, went down there without a mechanic, and put it in the water an hour and a half before the race, and went out and won the race. So that was our best, easiest race. Most disappointing was Sarasota. We had gone out there with fresh motors again, and they had the hurricane over in North Carolina where the engine builder is. Prior to that, we were doing real good in the race. We would have ended up first if we would have kept going, and we found a stone in the fuel filter, in the fuel line, when we got back to Chicago, so it cut us out of there, and that was a shame.
Oh, the best race of the year for us by far was Sarasota. The boat was hooked up perfectly. It was rough water, which we like to run in. Just spectacular. We won the race. You know, you can't ask for a better time than that. Oh, the worst race, I think, was probably Maryland. We had a good chance to go ahead of everybody in the points that race, and we had engine trouble, and we ended up finishing the race, but way back.
I'd say probably the best race was Chesapeake, Maryland race. It was a lot of fun. The guys from Florida, Zero Gravity, just did a great job. They're young, they don't have the experience. We're sort of a little more mature as a racing team. We waited for them to make a few mistakes, and we took advantage of the mistakes and blew by them. So I guess the worst was the West Palm, where we were faced the wrong direction for the start. We didn't see the smoke. We had to catch a lot of boats, so that was really that was pushing the equipment really hard. And we're not known for doing that. We're known for sort of laying back and doing the job from second and third position. We were in last position and had to make it all out.
Sarasota is always a lot of fun. West Palm Beach was a lot of fun. Any race you win is a lot of fun. The worst race has to be Fort Myers. That breakdown really hurt us. We had an electrical problem. One of the engines died on us, and if we'd have just thought ahead and limped around the course and at least finished, we'd have got our full points. But being as we didn't finish, we only got half points.
I would say Galveston. The reason why Galveston, Texas, that's probably what we consider our hometown race. It's only about 30 miles from us. The water was rough. That's what we like, is rough water. That was our best race. I got hurt at that race a little bit, but even after that, we took a first place finish in our class, and it was just probably with the hometown crowd, the way the boat ran starting out the season, that was probably our funnest race. Probably Maryland, just because we had a first place. We were in first place by probably about 2 or 3 miles. It was in the middle of the season. The team, it would have been our 6th straight win. We were really looking forward to that for the crew's sake. They're the ones that are doing all the work on the boat, and we come out, and I'd made a calculation error on fuel, and it's just it's a letdown, especially to be having a winning season like that and have something like that go wrong.
Well, obviously the Fort Myers was the most exciting and best race for us, where we dominated the field, but personally, between Ed and I in the boat, Sarasota was unchallenged for us. We had the big waves, got a lot of air in the boat. We really got to see what the boat was all about. We really got to find out what we were all about as a team, and it really is where we came together. West Palm Beach is we made it across the starting line, and not much further after that.
Has to have a path of boats this year throughout the season, and of course won the championship in modified.
That's right. The 38-foot Fountain Spirit of Texas sent a signal way back last February when they became the fastest V-bottom in the world at over 130 miles an hour, and then they just kept right on going. The offshore race season started, and they won the first 3 events in dominating fashion.
dominating indeed. Kurt Harbor and Rodney Riddell, the unbeatable duo inside the cockpit of the Spirit of Texas.
Spirit of Texas winning at Galveston, the opening race, then at Fort Myers, then at Sarasota. Their first loss of the season was a third-place finish at the Chesapeake when they ran out of fuel.
This is one of the first boats that Reggie Fountain ever built with a positive lift bottom design. Not only does the boat have a notched transom and a pad keel, but there's also steps along the bottom, which give the boat quite a bit of aerodynamic lift. It's a trait that most of the V-bottom boats around the country now are starting to copy. Gives the boat a real edge both in top-end speed, in acceleration, and in handling.
It wasn't until the West Coast boys came on the scene after the halfway mark to really make things interesting in the modified division. Out of bounds, the green boat. What a spectacular display. A third in Sarasota, a second in Ventura. A great race with Ragamuffin, as you see Ragamuffin coming up and getting lots of airtime there in Sarasota.
The Cats put the heat on in the big water down in Florida, but the M11 got the job done, winning their third race in a row. And then the picture changed. Up north on the Chesapeake, hot and nasty, the smallest modified boat in the country, a dominating performance.
They won at Chesapeake and took a second place at Palm Beach, just 9 seconds off the leader. The winner at Palm Beach, utterly fantastic. More affectionately known as Moo, M-double-ot. Utterly fantastic, led every lap of this race, averaging better than 92 miles an hour. Right here you see Hot and Nasty giving it a good go, though, Mark.
That's right, Art. 92 mile per hour average was aided by the fact that Hot and Nasty was filling up their rear view mirrors all day long.
Championship came down to the final race of the season where Spirit of Texas, all they needed to do was start the race, but you see they had engine problems. They finally got that engine started, though, to take the crown. But what a great battle for the win.
Ricky Ford and the Ragamuffin and the out of bounds diced it out, made their move on the last 50 feet of the race to score a come-from-behind victory.
Rodney Riddell and Kurt Harbor were quoted as saying, "We'll paddle out there to start this race if we had to," but as you see here, they closed up fast and won the national championship, finishing third on that day. It is now M1 instead of M11.
I would say this has been our funnest season. Just everything from the whole team, from Jack support to my throttleman, Kurt, to everybody. I mean, this whole season was fun for us. The speeds we were running, the amount of competition we had, all the race sites this year, the races we went to were really put on real well. They were real well orchestrated. They were just a good time.
The Fountain Powerboat Owens Corning APBA Offshore Year in Review continues after this.
Multi-million-dollar sport. So let's go back by popular demand.
From Palm Beach County, Florida, it's every racer's favorite game show, the Offshore Brain Challenge. Our challengers today are Kurt Harbor, Andy Trout, Larry Goldman, Rodney Riddell, John Tomlinson, and Jack Carmody. For our contestants, today's question is, do you know how to score an offshore race?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that's why we were here today.
I'm very familiar with the points because I'm in first place in my class.
Ask Rodney.
Seriously, guys, how do you score points in an offshore race?
You accumulate so many points for first, second, or third, okay? And then also how many boats you place against. If there's 5 boats in the class, you get 1 point for each boat you finished against or you beat, plus the amount of points for that win.
You are right, Larry! Our next contestant, please.
You get a point for how many boats cross the starting line, and second place points for first place points, I believe, were about 100 points difference. Am I right there?
No, John, you are not right. our next contestant.
You get about 100 points for first place, and then I think it's 90 for second, 80 for third, and it works its way down. If a boat doesn't finish a race, they get their place divided in half. So if you were in, say, running in third place, you broke down, then you'd get 60 points. You get half of that, you'd end up with 30.
Judges? Almost, but no cigar. Next contestant, come on down.
If there's 10 boats start, well, you have to finish the race to get full points. That I know. And then you get half points if you don't finish the race, right? I don't know. It's so confusing. I have no clue.
Nice try, Kurt. Next.
You get points awarded. Of course, first gets the most points, but there's no points for laps added to this. There's more points if you have, the more boats you have in your class, there's more points awarded. It's an advantage to you to have a class that there's a lot of boats in to get more points off of that, and that does help you.
Judges? While they try and decipher what he said, next.
For instance, if it's 100 points for getting first place and there's 10 boats, there's 110 points available for first place.
Our panel is conferring. Oh, well, Jack, that's not exactly right, but close. This is an official point scoring sheet, and we spoke to D. Kimes, the official score, and asked for the real answer in scoring.
Okay, let's see if I can help you out and explain it. If we have 10 boats in a class, let's say if the first boat is number 1, he gets 100 points. The second boat on down, we give a point per boat they pass. So the second position would be 98. The third position would be 88. They get a point per boat they passed. If they have retired, if they have quit running, they get half points only on it. Okay?
You gotta bring your calculator to an offshore race. And speaking of calculators, there were 9 boats that made every single stop on the 1996 tour.
And Mark, the big reason that 9 boats traveled from all of the United States to every race, they were involved in title chases. Of the 9, 6 won national championships. The other 3 second-place finishes. The Subluxator team out of Naples, Florida. Bruce Sperling and Joanna from the Chicago area. Harrah's Megabucks, Mac, Jason, and Jerry Seelig out of New Jersey. Team Stockard, Greg Morris and Tim Steiner from Naples, Florida. Cutting Edge, Ellen Butler from Corpus Christi, Texas. Gary Blue from Boca Raton, Florida. Hurricane comes out of the Fort Myers area. And Patriot with Bob Hamlin of Huntsville, North Carolina, and Roger Taylor from Davie, Florida. And one can only wonder where the spirit of Texas came from. And of course, the open boat class, 0 defect. Leif Ferrone lives in Alabama. Johnny Tomlinson in North Miami. Our congratulations to all for giving us championship action this year. 0 defect became the first offshore boat to sweep an entire season. That's strung together more consecutive victories.
That's right, Art. Carl Myers tried, Jack Carmody tried, John Rebben tried, and Reggie Fountain tried, but nobody could get the job done. Nobody could stop the winning streak of Leif Ferrone and Johnny Tomlinson. They truly had a 0 defect kind of a season.
Zero defect started the season out in Galveston in true form, just blowing everyone else away. And lapping just about the whole field on way to their first checkered flag of 1996.
An extremely well-prepared team, Art. Oftentimes you can tell the difference between first and second place by who does their homework. Johnny Tomlinson and Leif Ferrone spent the entire offseason developing this boat, came up with several very innovative new wrinkles that really paid them dividends. Not only was the boat fast, but it also lasted. Amazing, amazing performance with tremendous consistency.
Fort Myers brought on some new competition, mainly Reggie Fountain and Jack Carmody. This is Reggie Fountain in the number 76 Ohio Steel, a 42-foot fountain with 3 1,000 horsepower Mercuries. It was then known as Carlos and Charlie's, number 38, the Spirit of Texas, with Jack Carmody, who finished second to 0 defect in Galveston.
Speeds in the open division, Art, early in the season approached 120 miles per hour, which made some of the other boats in the field look like they were parked.
0 defect in Fort Myers, sending Reggie Fountain back to second place and Jack Carmody to third as they took the checkered flag.
A Picture-perfect ride. Look at the boat riding right up on the steps in complete control. And then the scene changed from the smooth waters of Fort Myers to the rough stuff in Sarasota. A new rival, Ohio Steel. From the Fountain Racing Boat stable, John Rebin.
Carl Myers in number 39, How Sweet It Is, who at Galveston had engine problems and did not start, was getting his boat up and running with turbo engines at the time.
In the largest open class fleet that we saw all season, the number 5 Lightning Jack. With John Woolley and Bill Dunham, they offered pursuit.
They took a 3rd place and later backed that up with a 4th at Palm Beach. The Spirit of Texas. Jack Carmody was determined, but he was also getting frustrated not being able to catch Lath in Zero Defect.
Considered by many as the premier event on the offshore tour, Zero Defect won in Sarasota.
The series would leave Florida, Zero Defect, 3 for 3. But perhaps the most serious challenge midway through the season happened here on the Chesapeake. A great start by Carl Myers, and How Sweet It Is, the whole shot, putting that red number 39 in front of Zero Defect in the early going.
A sight we hadn't seen all year at the start of the race. How Sweet It Is put almost a 4-second lead on Zero Defect. Johnny Tomlinson and Lath Ferrone then decided it was time to make their move.
You see them in front of the biggest spectator fleet of the year, about 2,000 boats. This was the return of a champion in pursuit of Zero Defect. Jack Carmody, before the race, bought last year's national championship boat, US 1.
Found out that in the rough water conditions that we're having a hard time staying with the new 46s they're building. They're actually as light as this 40. So after thinking about it and running a few races, we decided to go ahead and buy 46, and we ended up buying Stuart Hines' boat, the US 1 boat that won the World Championship last year. So we'll be running that boat in this race.
For Zero Defect, the Chesapeake Bay was actually 3 races within a race. The first race they had at the beginning stages, How Sweet It Is, it took them almost a full lap to run down Carl Myers. In the middle stages of the race, Johnny Tomlinson and Lath Ferrone plotted strategy, averaging speeds around 110 miles per hour. They started to make their move, inching ahead of Art Lilly and Jack Carmody as they got their sea legs in the Spirit of Texas.
Zero Defect carried the lead throughout the race, but in the last 2 laps, it was US 1 catching up to Lath Ferrone.
Less than 3 seconds separated Zero Defect and the Spirit of Texas at the checkered flag.
Field to disrupt the and they were all after him. Ohio Steel, Reggie Fountain, US 1, you name it, they were there.
Part this season on the offshore racing tour, there was a move to design the courses to be more spectator-friendly, a little bit smaller courses with a lot more turns. Zero Defect used that for their advantage. At the beginning of the year, they developed a multi-speed transmission. They were the only boat that had it. They were able to go into a turn and actually downshift, which gave Zero Defect a tremendous edge. This big catamaran didn't quite labor through the turns, didn't bog down like some of the other boats, gave them a real edge in acceleration coming off the pins. John Rebin in the Ohio Steel thought he could run down Zero Defect. He had a lighter boat, but couldn't get it done. Reggie Fountain, all season long, tried to offer pursuit in his big V-bottom, probably one of the fastest V-bottoms that's ever been made, but he just couldn't run with the big cats.
And inspired by his 2nd place finish at the Chesapeake, Jack Carmody in the Spirit of Texas was pulling all the stops. He would take a 3rd, though, in Palm Beach. Behind the leaders, a real good battle for 4th and 5th in Palm Beach between Sudden Impact and Lightning Jack. With the sun glistening off the sea, our helicopter zeroes in on the 36-foot fountain with 2 850-horsepower engines.
At the finish line, it was the same sight once again. Zero Defect. Johnny Tomlinson and Lath Ferrone. They'd won in the rough water in Sarasota, and they did it again here in Palm Beach. And then the scene switched to the West Coast, the final race of the season. With history in the making and the pressure on, let's take a look at the start of the race from inside the cockpit of Rick Bowling's Jelly Belly Gone Again at the top of the screen. Zero defect on your right. Carl Myers on the left. Reminiscent of the race up on the Chesapeake. A real dogfight on the run to the first turn.
You have to hand it to Carl Myers, number 39 in the Red Boat. How sweet it is, coming all the way from New York out to California, simply for the competition. He took the turbo engines out of How Sweet It Is, put Mercury engines back in, was very competitive. Despite the fact the national championship was already sewed up by Zero Defect, Carl Myers made a real race of it at Ventura. It had never been done before. Winning every race, 6 out of 6 on the season for Zero Defect, a true storybook year. Of course, the research and development before the season started was one of the big keys, but the dedication of many, not just the principals in the boat.
You know, our John Tomlinson and Laith Ferrone probably don't get the credit that they deserve. It was a real long season, and one has to wonder, what was the turning point?
The turning point had to be Sarasota. I mean, the big dogs were there. Everybody was there. Everybody was looking to us, these guys, you know, whether they can continue that streak or, you know, the pressure was on. And, you know, we took it one day at a time, one step at a time. And I think after Sarasota, everybody felt that, you know, these guys are here to stay, and these guys are the real deal.
How do you feel you've gotten the credit that the two guys inside the boat have kind of earned the stripes that they deserve? It's not just a boat, it's not just engine, but there's people in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, it's part and parcel. Everybody, you know, plays a role in the team effort. You know, again, I have to stress that it is a team effort. And, you know, like I say, you know, basically my team gets the boat ready for me to go out there on Sunday, and basically when I get in that boat on Sunday morning, basically I got a job to do, and that's basically to win the race.
Outstanding champions, and you'd think after sweeping a season there'd be some jealousy from the other competitors, but they're well respected and liked by the opposing teams. Based on his 1996 performance, John Tomlinson has to be considered the premier throttle man of the season. We asked him about the keys to this year.
There isn't really any one key. It's just it's a real good mesh of a group of guys working real hard, and everybody's had the same goal, and we've been real fortunate. I mean, let alone finish an offshore race, let alone finishing every race, let alone winning the races. I mean, that's something, if you would have asked me in the beginning of the year, I would have said, no way, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're not going to win every race, but like I said, we've been very fortunate this year.
Our final thoughts when the Fountain Powerboat Owens Corning APBA Offshore Year in Review continues. Crystal ball out, things are
been sold to the Muscle team. They'll run a two-boat team in 1997, and Reggie found he's already working on ways to end that Zero Defect winning streak. He not only has one boat, not two, but 3 boats under construction. He's going to give them a run for their money in 1997.
And rule changes for next year, the biggest rule change in 15 years in the sport. Cats will be racing against cats and V-bottoms against V-bottoms.
There's been a number of discussions over the years that cats and V's should not be competing with each other because they're basically very different types of hulls, obviously. The V's they shine in the rough water, and the cats have the advantage in the smooth water, and on any given day, one hull will be more competitive than the other. A number of people have requested that they be separate, and finally we've come to the point in time that we can separate them, and we will have better competition for it. We want the driver to be boat against boat, but it'd be driver against in equally matched equipment.
What do you think of the new rule now for next year, where cats are going to be against cats and V's against V's?
I think that's definitely the way it should go. We have purchased a 42-foot fountain, so we'll be running both class. We're excited about the new V class next year, and I think what you're going to see now is you're going to see a lot of the bigger Apaches and a lot of the offshore boats that are from Everglades Marina down in Miami come back into the game now. They haven't wanted to race against the cats. They haven't been able to keep up because of the smaller water we've seen in the Gulf races, and these guys are going to come back out of the warehouse now and get out there and run.
I think it's in any sport. People hate changes in rules because the equipment, the money's all involved. 4 years down the road, everybody's going to love it. I like to see it because I'm in a class to where I compete against cats. A lot of classes, in the B class, the C class, most of those aren't running cats against V's or vice versa. In our cat class, in rough water, I can normally dominate a cat. In smooth water, they dominate me. I can see while I'm racing where the difference is. You cannot physically make the correct rules to make the boats competitive on both spectrums. I'm looking forward to the rule changes. I'm not an equipment owner, so I'm not the one spending the money, but I can see from a racer's point that I can see the rules need to be changed.
The changing of rules is also aimed at uniforming the APBA standards with the international offshore racing scene.
International racing is always an important part of any kind of a public relations program, and it looks like we've made some headway this weekend to get some boats and classes together that they can race there, and we're looking forward to hosting the Class 2-3 championships here in America in 1997.
Well, there are broadcasting assignments and there are broadcasting assignments, but covering offshore powerboat racing with the resorts, the boats, the fantastic excitement, you can't beat it.
That's right. I already want to get my kidney belt ready for 1997.
Art Eckman for Mark Spencer and Connie Willis, thank you for being with us and enjoying offshore powerboat racing. The 1996 APBA Year in Review has been brought to you by Fountain Powerboats. When we race, you win. A promotional consideration has been provided by Summerfield Suites Hotel. Summerfield Suites Hotel has over 23 locations nationwide. Check out all the places you can check in. Call 407-238-0777. Summerfield Suites Hotels. Presentation of Production One Entertainment Group in association with Prime Network.
Anything can happen